You two are still together? I thought Derek said you were on a break. That sentence hit me harder than any slap could have. It came from Kayla, a girl no older than 26 with perfect skin, fake lashes, and a giggle that grated like nails on glass. We were standing in the middle of a backyard barbecue Derek had thrown for his coworkers. Everyone had red Solo cups in hand, laughing, trading weekend plans. It was supposed to be casual, normal. But that one line from Kayla cracked something in me. My name is Lillian Cross. I'm 39 and I've been married to Derek for 12 years. We live in a beige house in Salt Lake City with a tidy lawn and 2 cars in the driveway. No kids, not by choice. After 2 miscarriages, I stopped trying. I told people we weren't in a rush, while hiding the fact that every negative test gutted me. Derek works in medical equipment sales. He's charming, the kind of man who remembers your birthday, always smells good, and somehow never runs out of things to say. I used to be proud of that. Now I see it for what it is. Performance. At that barbecue, I stood frozen, clutching a bowl of guac like it was an anchor. I smiled too quickly, mumbled something about just rumors, and excused myself inside. Inside, I sat on the edge of our bed and stared at my reflection in the vanity mirror. The woman looking back at me had tired eyes and perfectly curled hair. I had prepped for this party like any good wife would. Cleaned the house, set the playlist, even made Derek's favorite dip from scratch. But apparently, somewhere between the playlist and the homemade guac, my husband told another woman we were on a break. It wasn't the first time I'd ignored my gut. Over the last few months, Derek had become distant. Subtle things at first. He stopped texting when he'd be late. Said he was too tired when I leaned in. His phone, once left carelessly on the counter, was now face down and passcode protected. I chalked it up to stress. Q4 had been rough for his department, and he'd started traveling more, always with some new city and some last-minute conference. But that night, I couldn't pretend anymore. After everyone left, I washed the dishes alone. Derek came in, whistling, beer still in hand. "Hey, babe, Kayla told me you two chatted. She's sweet, huh?" "Yeah," I said flatly. "Sweet." He didn't notice the edge in my voice. Or maybe he did and just didn't care. I waited until he fell asleep, snoring slightly on the couch like he always did after a few drinks, and walked over to his briefcase. That's when I saw it. A printed reservation. Friday night. Kyoto House. I blinked. I'd never been there. It was new, trendy, impossible to get into unless you booked weeks in advance. And Derek? He wasn't the surprise dinner type. The name on the reservation made my stomach flip. Derek Haynes plus Kayla B table for 2. 7 p.m. window seat requested. My ears rang. My hands went numb. I stood there, paper in hand for what felt like hours. This wasn't a one-time slip. This was a man who planned, who arranged, who chose. And me? I had folded his laundry 2 nights ago. I had packed his travel-sized toothpaste for his last conference. I had believed him when he said I was overthinking again. But not this time. This time, I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to get even. And if Derek wanted a quiet dinner with Kayla in a dimly lit restaurant by the window, he'd get one. Just not the way he imagined. I didn't sleep that night. I just laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my mind a looping reel of every lie Derek had fed me over the past year. Work dinner ran late. Kayla? Oh, she's just a kid. Barely out of college. You really think I'd risk us over something that stupid? Yes, Derek. Yes, I do. Because you did. By sunrise, I had made 2 decisions. 1, I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. 2, I was going to make sure that when he did see me again, he'd wish he hadn't. I made coffee. The bitter kind. No sugar, no cream, just like my mood. He came into the kitchen rubbing his eyes, still smelling faintly of whiskey and arrogance. "Morning, babe," he mumbled. I handed him a mug. "Morning." He didn't even look at me. That day at work, I could barely function. My hands moved automatically on the keyboard, but my mind was somewhere else. Somewhere darker. I kept replaying every dinner I'd eaten alone. Every night I'd waited up only to hear, "Don't wait for me next time. I've got a long day tomorrow." He wasn't tired. He was somewhere else. With her. The injustice of it made my chest ache. I had carried us through the hard years. When he lost his job, when I picked up double shifts, when his father died and he completely shut down for months. I cooked, cleaned, kept our lives from falling apart. I never asked for much. Just loyalty. Honesty. But apparently, even that was too much for him. By lunch, I had already crafted a plan. Not rage-fueled. Not impulsive. Cold. Precise. I dug through an old folder in my email labeled Community Events. Inside was a contact I barely remembered. Someone I met at a finance conference last year. He had a podcast, some blog, and ran a group called Rebuilding After Divorce. His name was Grant Hughes. I pulled up his site. He'd posted a recent article about emotional architecture, rebuilding your mental space after betrayal. It was good. Raw, honest, and written like someone who'd actually been there. Perfect. I drafted the email. Subject: Speaking Opportunity, Financial Empowerment Series. Dear Mr. Hughes, my name is Lillian Cross, and I'm the Senior Financial Coordinator at Fairmount Medical Center in Salt Lake City. We're planning a panel on post-crisis financial planning, particularly focusing on women recovering from divorce or financial betrayal. I recently came across your work and believe your voice would resonate deeply with our audience. I'll be hosting a private dinner at Kyoto House this Friday at 7 p.m. to discuss potential collaboration. If you're available, it would be wonderful to meet in person. Sincerely, Lillian Cross. I hit send before I could overthink it. Then I called Kyoto House. Hi, yes, I'd like to reserve a table for Friday at 7 p.m. Window seat, if possible. Ideally. If there's a reservation under Derek Haynes or Kayla B., I'd like to be placed nearby. We're business partners. The woman on the phone barely blinked. We can accommodate that. I hung up, heart pounding, not with fear, with focus. I still had 3 days to keep playing the role of the good, patient wife while silently prepping for his unmasking. On Wednesday, I got Grant's reply. Hi, Lillian. Thank you for reaching out. The topic sounds compelling, and I'd love to learn more. Friday at Kyoto House works perfectly. Looking forward to meeting you. Best, Grant. I stared at his name in my inbox for a long time. He didn't know it yet, but that night wasn't just about collaboration. It was about clarity. And then, Thursday evening, something happened that I didn't expect. Derek came home with a wrapped box. He handed it to me like it was some kind of peace offering. What's this? I asked, suspicious. He grinned that same sales rep grin. Just something to say thanks, for always holding things down. Inside was a bracelet. Delicate, silver with a small charm shaped like a key. It reminded me of you, he said. I stared at it, unable to speak. The cruelty of it all, giving me a charm that symbolized trust the night before he was set to betray me again. It nearly broke me, but I didn't let him see that. I smiled. It's beautiful. Then I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and threw up. Because tomorrow night he'd wear the same suit he wore to our anniversary last year. Only this time he wouldn't be looking at me across the table. I showed up 15 minutes early. Kyoto House was dimly lit. The kind of place where waiters speak in hushed tones and everything smells like clean wood and citrus. A soft jazz trio played in the corner. The hostess smiled, checked my name, and nodded. Yes, Ms. Cross. Right this way. We've placed you at a table near the window, just as requested. I followed her through the restaurant, my heels tapping quietly against the polished floor. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't even fluttering. It was still. Cold. Like something in me had shut off. I was wearing the navy wrap dress Derek once told me made me look too serious for date night. Tonight, that was exactly the point. The table was perfect. Tucked just enough in the corner to stay discreet, but with a full view of the larger window-side table set for two. A white card marked it. Reserved, Haynes. I ordered a glass of Pinot and sat down. 5 minutes later, Grant walked in. He looked decent. Kind in that quiet, weary way men do when they've been through something and live to tell about it. He wore a dark blazer over a soft gray shirt and carried a leather notebook tucked under his arm. "Miss Cross?" he asked. "Lillian," I said, standing to shake his hand. "Thank you for coming." We sat. We talked. About career burnout. About rebuilding after betrayal. About the odd comfort of silence when the person next to you no longer sees you. But I kept one eye on the door. And at 7:06, they arrived. Derek walked in wearing the light gray suit I bought him for our 10th anniversary. The one we never actually celebrated because sales conference in Reno came up. Kayla wore a red satin dress cut higher than it needed to be. She held his arm like she'd earned it, like it wasn't stolen. When they reached their table, Derek pulled her chair out, then leaned in and said something close to her ear. She laughed, flipping her hair. I felt the burn rise in my chest, but I didn't blink. I took a sip of my wine and nodded at something Grant had just said. Then Derek looked up and saw me. His face froze, like someone had unplugged him. He blinked. Once, twice. His hand jerked, knocking the menu slightly off the table. Kayla turned to follow his gaze, and that's when she saw me. I smiled. Not wide, not cruel, just aware. She whispered something, panicked. He said something back, face pale as the tablecloth. Grant glanced between us. "Everything okay?" "Oh yeah," I said calmly. "They're just realizing this isn't the dinner they thought it was." I stood. "Excuse me a moment." I walked slowly, heels sharp against the hardwood, until I reached their table. "Derek?" I said, voice even. "Funny running into you here." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Kayla stood halfway, clearly ready to bolt. "I wouldn't," I said, tilting my head. "Not yet." I turned to Derek. "You told her I was just your estranged ex, right? That we were figuring things out?" Kayla's eyes darted to him. "Wait, you said you were separated. You said—" He reached for her arm. "Kayla, let me explain." "You don't need to explain," I cut in. "Because I brought someone who deserves to hear this more than either of us." I turned toward the entrance, and there he was. Kayla's fiancé. He looked stunned, confused, still holding a takeout bag. Clearly hadn't expected to walk into a trap. I had found him on her Instagram weeks ago. Brandon Fields, construction manager. The kind of man who wore work boots more than dress shoes. I messaged him from a burner account. "You should see who your fiancé is having sushi with this Friday." And he came. He walked slowly toward us, eyes locked on Kayla. "Brandon?" She gasped. "Why are you—" "I was gonna surprise you," he said, his voice low. "Didn't realize you had plans of your own." The color drained from her face. Derek stood, hands up like a man being arrested. "Listen, this isn't what it looks like." "No," I said. "It's exactly what it looks like." The restaurant went quiet, like the jazz trio had even stopped mid-note. Then Brandon leaned in, looked Derek dead in the eye, and said, "You might want to tell your wife she dropped her wedding ring in my truck last week." I swear, the air left the room. Derek turned to me, stunned. But I just gave a half smile, stepped back, and returned to my table. Grant raised an eyebrow. "Anything I should know?" I took a sip of wine. "Let's just say the keynote tonight isn't me." The drive home that night felt like gliding through aftermath. After Brandon's line about the wedding ring in his truck, Derek couldn't even speak. Kayla looked like someone had poured ice water straight down her spine. The waiter stood frozen, unsure whether to bring soy sauce or a fire extinguisher. I walked out without touching my sushi. Funny how betrayal kills your appetite. I got in the car, shut the door, and just sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel like it might anchor me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just let the quiet wrap around me. Tight. Almost holy. This wasn't sadness anymore. This was power. For the first time in years, I felt like I was back in control. Not because I humiliated Derek, but because I finally chose me. But this wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, I went back to the house we still technically shared. I walked in, and there he was, Derek, on the couch in the same wrinkled suit, hair a mess, face hollow. He looked up like he'd seen a ghost. "Lillian, we need to talk." "No," I said, calm as a still pond. "You need to listen." I tossed a small envelope on the coffee table. Inside were photos, screenshots, every text, every calendar invite, every reservation under fake names. I had printed it all. "I stayed quiet for a long time," I said. "I cooked your dinner while you were with her. I ironed your shirts that smelled like perfume I don't wear. And I swallowed every doubt because I thought if I loved you harder, you'd remember who I was." He opened his mouth, probably to deliver some recycled apology. I held up a hand. "Don't. I've heard enough from you to last a lifetime." He slumped forward. "I messed up. I know I did. But last night, please, let's not throw away 12 years over one mistake." "One?" I laughed, low, bitter. "You didn't just trip and fall into another woman's bed, Derek. You chose her, over and over. You chose to lie. You chose to look me in the eye and say nothing." His voice cracked. "What do you want me to do? Beg?" "No," I said, leaning down, eye to eye. "I want you to move out by Monday. I want the silence you gave me for the last year, but on my terms now. And I want you to know something else." He looked up, eyes red. "I didn't just expose you to your mistress or her fiancé." He froze. I took out my phone, opened a voice memo, and played it. "Hey babe, don't forget your charger again. Same room as last time, 7:02. I'll order the rosé. You're the only part of my day that doesn't feel fake." Kayla's voice, and Derek's, crystal clear. He paled. "How did you—" "I borrowed your iPad last month, remember? You left it unlocked. You synced your messages. Rookie move." He was shaking now. "I forwarded it all," I said. "To your boss, your VP, your mother, oh, and HR. Since technically Kayla was in the training rotation you oversaw." "You're kidding." "I'm done kidding." He lunged up. "You just ruined my career." "No," I said, stepping back. "You did that. I just stopped protecting your lies." His hands trembled. "They'll fire me." "They should." He collapsed onto the couch again, deflated. I turned to leave, but then paused. There was one last thing. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small velvet box. "Remember this?" I asked. It was the charm bracelet he gave me, the one with the little key. "Meant to symbolize trust, right?" I said. He nodded, confused. I opened the box, but the bracelet wasn't inside anymore. Inside was a single folded receipt. Hotel, Santa Fe, 3 months ago, paid with my credit card. He blinked. "Wait, how did you—" I knew. I just needed proof. "And now you're going to pay me back every cent from that trip and every lie that came with it." I dropped the box on the floor. "And by the way," I added, looking straight into his eyes, "you might want to call your lawyer, because I've already called mine." I left Derek in that living room with nothing but the echoes of his own lies. By the time I walked out the front door, I had already forwarded the evidence to every relevant contact. It wasn't out of spite. It was survival. I wasn't just cleaning out a marriage, I was disinfecting it. The fallout came fast. By Tuesday morning, I got a message from a mutual friend who worked at Derek's company. He'd been placed on immediate leave pending an HR investigation. Kayla, too. Apparently, there were questions about misuse of company funds, inappropriate conduct, and favoritism. Turns out their little business trips weren't so subtle after all. 3 days later, he texted me, You've ruined me. I hope you're proud. I didn't reply. What was there to say? He'd burned the house down, and now he was blaming the woman who stopped fanning the flames. A week later, I sat across from my lawyer as we filed for divorce. Clean, swift, no negotiations. I wasn't asking for revenge money. I was asking for freedom. I moved into a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, plants by the windowsill, a kitchen that smelled like possibility, and silence. Beautiful, chosen silence. Not the silence I used to sit in, waiting for someone who said, "I'll be home by 8, and stumbled in past midnight. This silence was mine. About a month later, I ran into Kayla, of all places, at a CVS in the frozen aisle. Her hair was messy, no makeup, eyes heavy like she hadn't slept in days. She saw me, paused, then said quietly, "He told me you were cold, controlling, that you never touched him." I raised an eyebrow. "And you believed him?" She didn't answer. I took a step closer. Not threatening, just clear. When a man lies about the woman who built him, what makes you think he won't lie about the one who ruined him? She looked like she was going to cry. I didn't comfort her. I simply walked past her, groceries in hand. Justice doesn't always come with handcuffs. Sometimes it comes with consequences. And Derek? He was let go from his company by mutual agreement. His name quietly scrubbed from the leadership page. I heard through the grapevine that he applied for a few other jobs. None of them called back. Funny thing about trust. Once you break it, your resume can't fix it. A few months later, I got coffee with Grant. Yes, that Grant. The man from Kyoto House who witnessed it all. We kept in touch. Not romantically, just 2 people who understood what it's like to be betrayed and still get up the next day and make your damn coffee anyway. We talked about pain, healing, the terrifying beauty of starting over in your late 30s with nothing but your name and your sanity. Then one day, he looked at me and said, "You ever think this was the best thing that could have happened to you?" And I didn't even hesitate. Absolutely. Because sometimes rock bottom isn't a place, it's a person. And the moment you stop lying down next to them is the moment you start to rise. It's not weak to hope someone changes. What's weak is staying when they prove over and over that they won't. I loved a version of him that didn't exist anymore, and maybe never did. Letting go wasn't failure. It was freedom. If you've ever been through something similar, if you've been lied to, gaslit, made to feel invisible, I see you. Drop your story in the comments if you're ready. And if this hit home, you're welcome to stick around. I don't know everything, but I do know this. You don't have to stay broken just because someone else couldn't love you whole.